Imagine waking up to find a trail of footprints leading across your yard. But as you look up, you realize they don't stop at your door. They lead straight up the side of your house, across the snow-covered peaks of your roof, and continue for 100 miles, passing through solid walls as if they weren't even there. In 1855, the devil visited Devon. But he isn't the only shadow lurking in the corners of our history. Tonight, we're diving into 6 cases that defy every law of logic. From a runner who vanished into thin air while his friends watched, to the chilling radio transmissions of a boy trapped in a wreck that didn't exist, and the woman with 9 identities and no fingerprints. These aren't just stories. These are the mysteries that have never been solved. Lock your doors. Let's begin. Our first story takes us to the year 2008, in the quiet town of General Güemes, Argentina. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, that dead of night hour when the world feels just a little bit thinner. A group of friends, including a man named Jose Alvarez, were doing what any group of friends does, just hanging out, laughing, and reminiscing about a recent fishing trip. Jose had his mobile phone out, filming his friends as they joked around. But the atmosphere shifted in an instant. Out of the darkness came a sound, a strange, rhythmic thudding, as if someone, or something, was throwing stones at them from the shadows. They looked toward the nearby field and saw the tall grass begin to part. At first, they thought it was just a stray dog, but as the figure emerged, their laughter turned to pure cold terror. What the camera captured was a small humanoid figure. It didn't move like an animal. It moved with a stiff sideways gait, resembling a gnome from folklore, but twisted into something far more unsettling. The group didn't stay to investigate, they fled. Jose later told local reporters, "We were really afraid." And he wasn't the only one. Since that night, a pall of fear has hung over the town. Other locals have since come forward, claiming they've seen the same small figure darting through the shadows. Is it a sophisticated hoax? An unidentified animal? Or is there some truth to the ancient legends of the duende, the mischievous and sometimes malicious spirits of the earth? The footage is grainy, and the skeptics are many, but for the people of General Güemes, the night is no longer a place for jokes. What do you see in that video? A puppet on a string, or something that shouldn't exist? On the morning of February 9, 1855, the people of Devon, England, woke up to a world blanketed in white. A heavy snowfall had stopped just before dawn, leaving the countryside pristine. But as the villagers stepped outside, they found something that would haunt the region for generations. Stretching across the snow were a series of hoof-like marks. They were small, only about 2 inches wide, and spaced exactly 8 inches apart. At first glance, you might think donkey or pony. But as the locals tracked them, the logic began to break down. These tracks didn't wander. They followed a terrifyingly straight line for over 100 miles. It didn't matter what was in the way. The prints walked straight up vertical stone walls. They appeared on the snow-covered peaks of high rooftops. They even seemed to pass through 4-inch drain pipes, exiting the other side as if the solid metal was no obstacle at all. Rivers didn't stop them. Haystacks didn't slow them down. Whatever made these marks moved with a single-minded purpose that seemed unholy. Panic gripped the county. Rumors spread of a devil-like figure seen stalking the moors. Groups of armed men spent nights patrolling the fields, desperate to catch the beast responsible. They found nothing. No animal known to science could walk 100 miles in a single night in a perfectly straight line over houses and walls. For over 150 years, the devil's footprints remained a legend of the Victorian era. Until the night of March 12, 2009. Once again, after a fresh snowfall in Devon, the exact same marks appeared. The same shape. The same impossible spacing. The same eerie path across gardens and walls. Science has suggested everything from jumping mice to weather balloons, but none of it fits the 100-mile journey. After nearly 2 centuries, we are no closer to knowing what, or who, walked through Devon that night. In September 1931, the Irving family, James, Margaret, and their daughter Voirrey, began to hear a persistent scratching behind the wooden panels of their farmhouse. At first, they thought it was a rat. But this was no ordinary rodent. The noises began to change. One night it was the growl of a dog, the next, the gurgling of a baby. Soon, the haunting did something impossible. It started to talk. The creature introduced itself as Jeff. He claimed to be a mongoose, born in New Delhi, India, in the year 1852. When asked what he was, Jeff's answers were as erratic as his behavior. He called himself an extra clever mongoose, an earthbound spirit, and even a ghost in the form of a weasel. Jeff wasn't just a house guest, he was a personality. He sang along to records, shared local gossip, and occasionally threw objects at the family. But his self-description was the most haunting part. He once told the Irvings,
"I am a freak. I have hands and I have feet, and if you saw me, you would faint. You'd be petrified, mummified, turned into stone or a pillar of salt."
The only person who claimed to see him clearly was the daughter, Voirrey. She described him as being the size of a small rat with a large, bushy tail and yellowish fur. Investigators and skeptics flocked to the island, but they could never quite debunk the Dalby spook. Voirrey Irving passed away in 2005. To her final day, she maintained that Jeff was not a prank, not a hoax, and definitely not her creation. Whether Jeff was a mass delusion, a poltergeist, or a truly extra-clever mongoose, he remains one of the strangest occupants in the annals of the paranormal. But as strange as a talking mongoose is, it doesn't compare to a man who vanishes in the blink of an eye. James Worson was a man who loved to brag. He boasted of his endurance, his speed, and his unbeatable foot skills. So, when he was challenged to race the 20-mile stretch from Leamington to Coventry, he didn't hesitate. It was a challenge he accepted with a smile, unaware that he was running toward the edge of the world. Worson wasn't alone. His friends, Hammerson Burns and Barham Wise, followed right behind him in a horse-drawn carriage. Burns even brought his camera to document the feat for several miles. Worson was never out of their sight. He would occasionally turn around, laughing and exchanging friendly words with the riders. He looked strong. He looked healthy. He was right in the middle of the road. Then, it happened. Without warning, Worson appeared to stumble. He pitched forward, his hands reaching out to catch himself. In that split second, he let out a short piercing scream. Wise would later describe it as the most ghastly sound he had ever heard. But James Worson never hit the ground. As his friends watched in horror, Worson completely and totally vanished in mid-fall. One moment he was there, pitching toward the dirt, the next, there was only empty air. The carriage screeched to a halt. The road itself told the terrifying story. In the soft dirt, Worson's footprints led down the middle of the path, showed the skid of a stumble, and then, they simply stopped. A massive search was launched. Locals scoured every inch of the trail, but there was no sign of James. Most chilling of all were the bloodhounds. When the search dogs reached the exact spot where the footprints vanished, they became strangely terrified. They whimpered and refused to approach the area. James Worson was never seen or heard from again. He didn't just disappear, it was as if the universe simply deleted him. But while Worson disappeared into silence, our next subject was heard across 5 states, crying for a help that would never come. August 7, 1973, began like any other night for CB radio enthusiasts in New Mexico. But the airwaves were about to be hijacked by a voice that would haunt them for the rest of their lives.
Help! Is anybody there? My name is Larry. I'm Seth.
The voice belonged to a little boy. He was terrified. Between bouts of sobbing, he explained that he was trapped inside a red and white pickup truck. He had been on a rabbit hunting trip with his father when the unthinkable happened. His father suffered a heart attack at the wheel, and the truck had plummeted into a ravine.
My daddy. I think he's dead. He won't wake up. The doors are stuck. Please help me.
A massive search and rescue operation was launched. But then, the mystery took a bizarre turn. As New Mexico authorities scoured the mountains, Larry's signal began to jump. He was heard by operators in California, then Arizona, then Wyoming. His voice even reached as far as Canada. How could a low-power radio in a crashed truck in a ravine reach across the continent? Some called it skipping, a phenomenon where radio waves bounce off the atmosphere, but others feared something more localized and more confusing. One helicopter pilot searching the Manzano Mountains claimed he actually made contact. He heard the boy. But there was a discrepancy. The boy on the other end didn't call himself Larry. He said his name was David. Was it the same child, confused and fading? Or were there two tragedies unfolding at once? An army sergeant stayed on the line with the boy for 3 agonizing hours, trying to get a phone number or an address, but Larry could only cry and plead. On August 13th, the search was officially called off. Larry's battery had likely died, or the boy himself had succumbed to the heat and dehydration. Police later suggested the whole thing might have been a cruel series of hoaxes, noting that no red and white truck was ever found in the thousands of miles surveyed. But those who spoke to him, those who heard the raw unscripted terror in that child's voice, swear to this day that Larry was real. To them, he wasn't a hoax. He was a boy who died calling out to a world that could hear him, but could never find him. Larry left behind only a voice. But our final case left behind a body, and a mystery that reached the highest levels of international espionage. In the remote Isdal Valley of Norway, a place locals call the Death Valley, a hiker and his young daughters were traversing the rocky terrain when they stumbled upon a sight that would change Norwegian history. Tucked among the scree was the partially charred body of a woman. She was surrounded by a strange ritual of objects, sleeping pills, bottles of gasoline, and a silver spoon with the monogram filed away. When the police arrived, they realized they weren't just looking at a victim, they were looking at a ghost. Every single tag had been meticulously cut out of her clothing. Her fingerprints. They had been professionally sanded off. A dental screening revealed high-end gold work, but using techniques found only in Latin America. It was as if someone had gone to extreme lengths to ensure that if this woman were ever found, she could never be traced back to a home, a family, or a country. The breakthrough came at the Bergen train station, where 2 suitcases were found in a locker. Inside was a wardrobe of wigs, several pairs of non-prescription glasses, and 500 German marks hidden in the lining. But the most chilling discovery was a notebook filled with cryptic codes. When police finally cracked the code, they realized it was a detailed itinerary. This woman had traveled across Europe using at least 9 different aliases, checking into hotels with fake passports and moving with the precision of a shadow. Hotel staff who encountered her described a woman who was elegant but on edge. She spoke several languages fluently: English, French, German, and Dutch. She would frequently change rooms, always insisting on a balcony, and strangely, she ordered the same thing for room service every single time: porridge with milk. She was a woman hiding in plain sight, waiting for something, or running from someone. Decades later, a local man came forward with a story that the police supposedly suppressed. 5 days before the body was found, he had seen this elegant woman hiking on a remote trail. She wasn't dressed for the outdoors, and her face was distorted with fear. She had tried to speak to him, her mouth moving as if to scream, but she was being trailed closely by 2 large men in black coats. When he tried to report this to the police back in 1970, he claimed an officer told him, "Forget her. She was dispatched. The case will never be solved." Was she a Cold War spy? A high-stakes career? Or a victim of a conspiracy we aren't meant to understand? To this day, the Isdal Woman lies in an unmarked grave, her true name buried with her. 6 stories, 6 mysteries that remind us that the world is much stranger than we like to admit. From the voices in the static to the footprints in the snow, some secrets are simply not meant to be found. Which of these cases haunts you the most? Is it the boy who was never found, or the runner who vanished in midair? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you want to dive deeper into the darkness, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next mystery.